We'll begin this morning with the flag salute led by Supervisor Duran. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Supervisor Duran. We'll now go to the Statement of Meeting Procedures read by our Clerk of the Board, Ann Holman.
Welcome to the Placer County Board of Supervisors meeting of Tuesday, August 21st, 2012. Agendas are available on the wall outside this meeting room. If you are here to speak on an issue not appearing on the agenda, you may do so during the public comment period. There is a 3-minute time limit per speaker. The board is not permitted to take action on items addressed under public comment. When you speak, clearly state your name and address for the record. All items on the agenda will be open for the public to address before final action is taken. There's a 3-minute time limit per speaker, which will be monitored by a timer on the podium. If there is a person speaking on behalf of a group with no other testimony from another member of the group, please identify yourself as such, and your time may be extended at the pleasure of the board. Keep in mind that the chairman has the discretion of limiting the total discussion time on any item. If you are hearing impaired, we have listening devices available. It is requested that all pagers and cell phones be either turned off or put in the silent mode. Thank you for your participation and cooperation.
Thank you, Ann. At this time, we will take public comment. Anyone may address the board on any item not on today's agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Time for public comment will be 15 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. If we're unable to take all public comment during that time, we will reopen it at the end of the meeting. Also, please understand that the board is not permitted to take action on anything raised under public comment. So if there's anyone who would like to come forward and make public comment on anything not on today's agenda, now is your opportunity. I'm not seeing a wave of humanity coming forward, so I'm going to close public comment. And just before we get to Supervisors Committee reports, we do have, I should say, a supplemental agenda here that I know all the board saw. It is also available at the back of the room. I'd like to ask the indulgence of the board and take this item up out of deference to Chief Harris' very busy schedule immediately following the consent agenda, if the board is okay with that. All right, sounds good. All right, at this point, we'll move to Supervisors Committee reports. Any committee reports? Okay, I wanted to very quickly take the opportunity just to expand on some of my comments last week because a number of people asked me about it on the suspension, the state suspension of some of the elements of the Ralph M. Brown Act for the 12-13 state fiscal year. What happened is buried within Assembly Bill 1464, which was the Budget Act of 2012, there was a schedule of state mandates that were suspended. Within that list were some elements of the Brown Act, but the bill, unsurprisingly, didn't really clarify the nature and extent of those suspensions. But what it does is it relieves the state of the obligation to reimburse counties, cities, and special districts for printing and posting agendas 72 hours ahead of time, which then the inference is we don't have to post agendas 72 hours ahead of time. But I really want people to understand that Placer County is going to fully continue to comply with the intent of the Brown Act. We'll be posting our agendas 72 hours, at least 72 hours before public meetings. And even though the state may waver in their commitment to the Brown Act, we don't. And we just want to make sure that everyone understands that while these pieces have been lifted and we will not be getting compensated for that as we have in the past, we will continue to post agendas. So just a little bit of a clarification. If anybody needs any more information, feel free to give me a call. I think y'all know how to find me. Any other board members with any other supervisor committee reports? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. This will be a roll call vote. All items on the consent agenda, items 13 through 22, have been recommended by approval from the County Executive Department. All items will be approved by a single roll call vote. However, anyone may ask to address consent items prior to the board taking action, and that item may be moved for discussion. So Is there anyone on the board who would like to pull anything? Anyone in the audience? In that case, we will move to the consent agenda with a roll call.
Move approval of the consent agenda. Second.
Holmes?
Yes.
Duran?
Yes.
Euler? Montgomery?
Yes. Thank you, Ann. All right, at this time, we will move to county executive item. It's shown as 8C, Emergency Services Homeowners Insurance Rates. We'll be receiving a presentation from County Fire Warden Chief Brad Harris of CAL FIRE. Brad, welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Brad Harris, the Fire Warden for Placer County. I'm also the Unit Chief for CAL FIRE's Nevada Yuba Placer Unit. A few weeks ago, Supervisor Montgomery brought an issue to our attention where a property owner in the Christian Valley area had received a large increase in their insurance rates and was told that their area had been downgraded by the insurance service organization, ISO, from what used to be a 6, 1 being the best you could be, 10 being the worst you could be. They were a 6 and were downgraded to a 10, which basically meant that they didn't have a fire department. That prompted us to do a good deal of investigation. What we found occurred back in 2006, actually April of 2006, when the Placer Consolidated Fire Protection District disbanded, dissolved, and was absorbed by Placer County Fire. We thought that all of the paperwork by ISO had been correctly processed, and it was at that time. Somewhere along the line between then and now, a clerical error apparently has occurred, and ISO is showing that the district dissolved in April 2012 with no successor agency. What that meant in their mind's eye, no fire department existed in the central portion of the county. The problem seems to be confined strictly to the Christian Valley area. North Auburn Ophir Fire, though they were the district in question, has not been affected as of yet. But the area in Christian Valley has been affected. We've been working diligently with ISO to correct this error. In some cases, we have seen property owners' insurance rates jump 6-fold. Some property owners are being told that they're going to pay up to $6,000 or $7,000 for their homeowner's insurance because of this ISO rating of 10. Doesn't affect every insurance company. Not all insurance companies subscribe to the ISO rating system, but a few do, and the few that do are actually increasing rates into those districts into those property owners by anywhere up to doubling it to 6 or multiplying it times 6. So that problem's out there. We've developed a short-term fix that will get our property owners through this bad situation. And we're working on the long-term fix. It's going to take about 30 days to correct the clerical error that occurred, and it's going to require a good deal of staff work by my staff to get this done. But we have developed a system, and we'd ask that any property owner that is affected have their insurance company contact our fire prevention staff in the DeWitt building, and we will work directly with their insurance agent to ensure that we do everything we can to bring them back into the appropriate rating that they should be receiving. And we're working with ISO as we speak in order to fix the clerical error that caused this whole thing to occur. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have regarding anything.
I don't see any questions, but I wanted to thank the board for their indulgence in bringing this item forward. I really just wanted to give you all a heads up because although it's within the 5th District, I know you all have friends and potentially family in some of these areas, and I thought you might be hearing some of these folks directly, so I just really wanted you to be aware of the background. I'm also very glad to see the Auburn Journal here today because I'm hoping that this gets enough publicity so that people don't just either automatically pay the bill when it comes forward, assuming that somehow this is legitimate, but that also people have a better understanding of what the underlying issue is and the steps that Placer Fire, through Chief Harris as Fire Warden, is taking to rectify this situation. Bobby, was there anything that you had to add to this? Or?
No, Again, we're handling it case by case. I'll get with the Auburn Journal, get it in the phone numbers, and hopefully for the next 30 days we can handle this peacefully and without a whole bunch. I can tell you, though, speaking with some of the insurance agencies, a few of them have lost customers. It seems like it's the independent agencies that are utilizing ISO the most.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from the board? All right, seeing none. Any questions from the audience on this while we have the experts here? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
on such short notice. And again, I appreciate the board indulging adding this to the agenda. Okay. At this time, we will move to our departmental items. We will start with item 6, Administrative Services, Procurement Services. Authorize Purchase Manager to sign the following. Brett Wood, come on forward.
You with item 6A, which is the request to approve the purchase of 11 Chevy Tahoe vehicles. These are from the California Emergency Management Agency, the 1122 Public Safety Procurement Program. As a matter, for a little bit of history for you, on June 5th, your board approved the proposed budget for fiscal year 12-13 and the early purchase of of items on the fixed asset list. The Department of Public Works and the Sheriff determined that they needed these 11 vehicles and submitted a requisition for their approval. We've worked with, through a cooperative agency, the CalEMA program is a cooperative government services agency that allows us the purchase of those vehicles. We obtained pricing for the vehicles in the amount of $339,963, and in order to validate the fact that these were a good competitive price, we went out and sought some quotes from other local agencies that could respond. At this point, this cooperative is the best unit price for these vehicles. There is always the potential of getting a better price, but we feel that this cooperative is the best possible price right now for the county. With that, happy to stand for any questions. There are also representatives from the department here if you have specific questions about the purchase.
I don't see any questions from the board, so what's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 7, Community Development Resource Agency, Engineering and Surveying, Placer County Code, Chapter 15 and 16, Early Building Permits. Michael Johnson and Chuck Grant.
Good morning. Michael Johnson with the Community Development Resource Agency. As part of the county's ongoing process improvements, the agency staff brings forward today proposed amendments to the county code regarding early building permits. Today's presentation will be made by Chuck Grant, our county surveyor.
Well, thank you, Michael. Good morning, Board. I'm Chuck Grant, County Surveyor. We bring some changes to County Code intended to streamline the process. In discussion with the development community, we've come to realize that some of our requirements may be somewhat dated, and this is an attempt to improve the process while maintaining all of the existing codes that protect public health and safety and ensure that fire protection and utility service providers can do their job. In the late 90s, we proposed some code changes that were adopted by your board, creating a certain type of building permit available to developers over 5,000 feet. Unfortunately, as part of that action, a type of building permit that was available countywide was restricted over 5,000 feet. This first code change serves to undo that, and it will allow non-occupancy building permits countywide. There are a number of requirements in order to qualify for non-occupancy building permits that will remain unchanged. The subdivider basically has to construct nearly all the subdivision improvements, and this allows them to initiate some construction while they're going through the final phases of acceptance of improvements. The second code change, it deals with the foundation permit that was adopted in the late 90s. That foundation permit was specifically was specifically formed to assist developers over 5,000 feet, recognizing the short construction season and the snow loads and the difficult and challenging construction environment. The permit requires the developer to perform on many levels. A great portion of the infrastructure has to be completed, and adequate roads and water service have to be installed to the satisfaction of the serving fire entity. Along with the other requirements, the developer must secure the incomplete subdivision improvements. Currently, that security is to be provided in cash. This amendment allows the agency director the discretion to evaluate alternate types of security. So it doesn't change any of the requirements of the foundation permit. It just gives the developer some latitude in how they provide the necessary security. The next amendment deals with subdivision security prior to the recordation of a final map. Currently, county code is more restrictive than state law in requiring the subdivider to provide security for all of the infrastructure improvements. State law specifically identifies the public component as those improvements that are in need of security. In 2010, your board adopted a code change that allows the developer to only warranty the public component of the improvements, recognizing that privately maintained improvements don't necessarily need public warranty. This proposed change builds on that and asks your board to adopt an ordinance changing county code that will exclude the need to secure the private infrastructure improvements associated with a subdivision. The subdivision process requires the developer to enter into an agreement with your board where they agree to construct all the improvements. And by definition of all the improvements, we tie back to the improvement plans. The improvement plans depict all the work necessary to complete the infrastructure and satisfy the improvements, the conditions of approval, such as the construction of a private park. That would be shown on the improvement plans together with the roads and necessary public infrastructure. All of the improvements shown on the plans will be constructed prior to bringing this project to your board for acceptance of improvements, and county code governing the issuance of building permits is not being changed. So no building permits can be issued until all of the improvements shown on the improvement plans have been accepted by your board. The last change involves the definition of what a foundation permit is, and unfortunately there was a clerical error that occurred in 2010, and a portion of the definition was removed from county code. This redefines foundation permit as work involving the foundation, rough framing, and roof sheeting. And again, these changes do not alter any of the protections to health and safety or the involvement of the fire district or serving utilities when we issue a building permit. I'm available for any questions.
Supervisor Duran?
Yes, thank you very much. With regards to sections C6, the security and the discretion that the senior director has in determining what is acceptable, if you were to accept hypothetically real property, what type of diligence would you use to ensure that that property was in fact owned and under title?
Well, real property, we would, although state law doesn't anticipate this process, we would piggyback on existing state law, which mandates that we take a deed of trust.
Okay.
So we would hold some instrument of title to assure performance.
So you go to the recorder's office and make sure that there was a title search, that they actually owned the property, and okay.
Yeah, and they would give us a deed of trust. We've done that in isolated incidents, and it's a nice tool.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
I see no other questions from the board. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this?
Madam Chair, members of the board, good morning. Ron Parr, DMB Highlands Group, Martis Valley. I would urge your strong support of the proposed changes. It's simply an accommodation that allows us to increase our chances for success. And in this anemic market, we need every chance we can get. So I hope you'll support the measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Anyone else like to comment on this? I see the entire above 5,000-foot contingent is here.
I only see a couple. Good morning, Madam Chairman, board members. Chris Parker, Vice President, Sugar Bowl Corporation. Again, want to reiterate our support for and development community above 5,000 feet support for this proposal. It does take away some disadvantages that we do have related to weather and the obstacles put in front of us. So, thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to comment on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, I will bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We will move to County Executive, Item 8, Personnel, Placer Public Employees Organization Memorandum of Understanding and Placer County Code Updates. Nancy Nittler and Therese Leonard presenting.
Good morning, Chairwoman Montgomery, members of the board. Therese Leonard with the County Executive Office, and I'm joined today by Nancy Nittler, Director of Personnel. And I just want to say it's my honor to be able to present an item that is a culmination of numerous staff participation and efforts to bring forward to your board. In looking at a little bit of the history, the last 4 years have been somewhat of a challenge for all government agencies, but it's also been a challenge for the workforces that are their employees. And as we have gone through an economic decline in this county and across the nation, essentially what that meant is that our revenues declined significantly, and they were sort of in a free fall state, if you will. All the growth in revenue we typically would count on to pay for operating cost increases no longer existed. And so as we went through these last 4 years, your board took a number of efforts in order to keep our county financially positioned in a very strong light. A couple of these had to do with streamlining our business practice, looking at alternative service delivery models. And in addition to that, we looked at our employee workforce because we are a service industry, one of the largest costs to our agency. And so in that light, what we looked at were some cost-sharing efforts. Health insurance was a big one where we went to an 80-20 platform. We also went to pension cost-sharing. And further, your board implemented, probably prior to most agencies in the state of California, a second retirement tier whereby new employees would come in under a less generous benefit, still a defined benefit plan. However, they would also pay 100% of their employees' share of the contribution to that pension plan. In addition to that, and I emphasize this, is that the Placer Public Employees Organization, which is about 1,700 employees strong, and about 75% of our workforce, also stepped up and took furlough days during this period of time, a number of furlough days. I think there was a year they took 12 and another year they took 5. So they participated in keeping our county in a very strong fiscal position. What we have before you today is a year-and-a-half effort to create a consolidated memorandum of understanding between the county and the Placer Public Employee Organization that literally pulls together between 30 and 40 years worth of agreements, side letters, and history into one document and updates it to current business practice, incorporates all law changes that were actually implemented through action, but not necessarily updated the code. This effort does that, and it more closely aligns our agency employee bases together. So we were able to, across the county, look at business practices that we could unify and have one practice for all. Included in this agreement is a furthering of your board's efforts for cost sharing, and in it, the employees of the Placer PPEO, I'm just going to go with their acronym, are going to pay 100% of their employees' share of their pension contribution. And that's significant. For the safety, that would be 9%, and for the miscellaneous, it's between 7 and 8%, depending on what tier they're in. In consideration of this effort, the board graciously agreed to a cafeteria plan contribution for these employees of between 5 and 6%, depending on the plan that they are in for pension, and further fine-tune the language again in the contract to bring favorable business alliance into the county for our own operations that will help our management team manage and supervise these employees better. At the final month of the term, which is December of 2013, the employees will receive a 2% wage increase. The last wage increase this group of employees received was way back in 2009, and that was a 2.5% increase. So while they are going to have to wait for the increase, it's a long term in coming. I do want to extend my personal appreciation to Aaron Johnson, the president of PPEO, who through his leadership helped guide his negotiating team to this end, as well as Chuck Thiel, who is a business representative for PPEO. Both of them were extraordinary in their patience and their persistence and helping us all get to a very fair agreement. And with that, Nancy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I'd just like to underscore the comments made by Therese in terms of the cooperation between the bargaining teams on all sides, and appreciate the support and patience of the board as we consolidated 30-plus years of history into one document, and I realize that translates to inches of paper in terms of the ordinances that you have before you today, but it will be a tool that is very useful for your managers, your supervisors, your employees, and the employee organization, and so I thank you for your support of us getting through that process, which I know took a while, 18 months or so while we did that, also in addition to accomplishing the board's direction in terms of the overall agreement. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from any members of the board on this? All right, seeing none. Any questions or comments from any members of the audience on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board?
Approval.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Supervisor Holmes?
I just want to thank both parties for the hard work putting this together, and we have a contract that hopefully everybody agrees to. It seems like 91% of the PPO supported it, so I just want to compliment you on your work and on the PPO staff that put this together as well. So thank you.
Supervisor Duran?
Yes, I'll just back up on Supervisor Holmes's words. This, having been presented with the red line version of this, I can tell that you put a tremendous amount of effort and work into crafting this ordinance. So thank you again.
And let me just echo both supervisors' words. I know you personally put a lot of time and effort into this, but so did PPEO and the representatives from them. And it was very heartening to me to not only see something agreed upon that everybody could live with and everybody could suffer a little pain and get a little bit of benefit out of, but I've had a couple of PPEO employees come up to me in the last couple of weeks and say, thank you for understanding that you know, we have needs, but we still want to be respected. We understand the county's not in the best shape, but together, you know, we crafted something that everybody can live with and really will serve the needs of the county and the employees as well. So my thanks to everyone, including the folks who aren't here today who took part in this. We've got about a minute or so. Graham, are you here? Let's just finish up with 8B. which is the last piece of our budget hearings, and then we'll move on to our 9:30 timed item.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Graham Knaus from the CEO's office. On Friday, we received some staff direction related to preparation of the final budget, which we are pulling together now and will make publicly available beginning on Thursday. However, we do have one remaining issue to resolve, which is why we're here this morning, related to a district attorney request associated with 2 investigator positions. And so what has been distributed to you is two documents. The first outlines what the request is and a staff recommendation related to funding that in the 12-13 year. The requests in total are approximately $386,000, which is near equal to the amount of 2011-12 carryover fund balance that went into the reserves from the district attorney's budget. And as such, staff recommendation would be proposed to redirect those dollars from the reserve to fund these 2 positions in the 12-13 year. And the second document is the detailed final budget adjustment that has been mocked up to reflect that recommendation. It is that document or any modifications to it that we would include as part of our public hearing package that we would post in the clerk of the board's office beginning on Thursday. So that's the outline related to the request and the staff recommendation, and with that I would actually turn it back to the board.
Okay. Supervisor Euler, I know last week you had some very specific questions that you were hoping to see answered in advance of us taking any action on this, as related, I think, to PCSO and probation. Is there someone here today who can answer your questions?
Either that, or whether Mr. Owens has had a conversation, or whether anybody from CEO's staff has had a conversation that might address those concerns.
I have not, although I would defer to, I see
You have Mr.
no one's
Owens
behind me,
with us.
I'll step out of the way.
Good morning. Scott Owens, District Attorney. I did speak with Under Sheriff Devin Bell yesterday, as well as Probation Chief Marshall Hopper. Neither of them certainly had a problem with it. Quite frankly, they felt that we were better suited. I mean, they were kind of coming from felt like they were coming from a position with a lack of knowledge, just because of unaware of the inner workings of the office, quite frankly. But neither one of them had any heartburn with it. But they both seem to be fine with it. My only comment as to the recommendation is, if there are not assurances as to funding going forward, it's going to be difficult to pull investigators out of other agencies to take it long term if they're looking at the funding possibly drying up last year. That would be my only comment with regards to the recommendations of the CEO's office.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Anyone else in the public want to comment on this item? All right. We're being asked to provide direction to staff in preparation as to relates to the proposal they just brought in front of us. Supervisor Euler?
Yeah. To Scott's last point, I am more inclined that we simply add the positions to the list of funded positions, and in anticipation they will become funded and filled positions, rather than necessarily dedicating the funding source for those positions at this point, understanding that this board, in cooperation with the District Attorney's Office and others in law enforcement, will be figuring out in the future how we fund and keep these positions around. So I don't know that it's necessary that we specifically identify the funding for these positions as on a kind of a one-time basis, as opposed to simply adding them to the funded positions list, knowing that they will be funded and filled.
Supervisor Duran?
Yes, and Scott, just to clarify, you're still seeking some type of grant possibilities for these positions as well?
We continue to seek out new grant opportunities, really for multiple positions.
Sure.
Certainly for now.
Sure. Okay. All right.
Any other comments from any other board members? Okay. I generally think that these positions should be funded moving forward. I'm not uncomfortable with the specific direction in terms of using the fund balance this year. I think over the next year, we're going to have an opportunity to revisit this whole public safety funding question for some of these positions and some of our relationships with some of our other public safety partners. And I think that would be a good time maybe to drill down a little bit deeper on ongoing funding. But it would be my suggestion that we move forward with the staff recommendation in this case and use the fund balance to fund these two positions moving forward. So that's my direction, my position.
Second, as per staff recommendation, Jim?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Supervisor Euler, your light's still on? Okay, it's still on. Okay. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Graham. I think you've got your direction. All right, we will now move to our 9:30 timed item. Board of Supervisors item. This is our second annual Placer County Stand Down. Supervisor Duran.
By receiving an update regarding the annual Placer County Stand Down. Want to come down and provide us with the update? That would be great.
Hi, Chaplain Terry Morgan. I'm the Senior Chaplain, Executive Director of Gulf Country Chaplaincy, and the President of the Placer County Veteran Stand Down. Just a few brief words about stand down. Stand down is a military term. When a soldier is in battle, they're taken back from the front lines for a time of R&R. They call it a stand down. They're standing down from the battle and given an opportunity to get a haircut, a hot meal, a change of clothes. Maybe they need to see a dentist. Maybe they've got a medical issue going on. Whatever it is, they're able to take care of that during that period of stand down. And San Diego, about 30 years ago, started a program called a Veteran Stand Down, where they brought in homeless veterans to give them an opportunity to step away from being homeless for a few days to take care of the exact same needs, get a haircut, a hot shower, a hot meal, clothes. But they took a little farther and they provided mental health for PTSD. They provided help with their VA benefits, help them finding a job. And we've kind of followed that same model in Placer County. Last year was our first year. I believe we had 241 veterans that came. A large number of those were homeless veterans. And it's kind of interesting when you ask a veteran if they're homeless. We had one fellow said, "Oh, no, I'm not homeless." And we actually provided him a ride back to where he lived. He lived in a little office inside of an auto repair shop in exchange for keeping an eye on the place at night. Now, in my mind, I would think that's homeless, but he says, "Oh, I'm not homeless. I've got a place to stay." We had another person that said, "I'm not homeless. In fact, I take care of 2 other veterans. We live in a tent up here in Colfax, and we pan for gold every day. That's how we support ourselves. We're not homeless." So it's interesting to see those numbers of people that said they're not really homeless. And what we've seen were a lot of little miracles. I do have some reports here, and I'll give these to you. Just a real brief report on some of our statistics, our numbers, and some of the little miracles that we've seen. And I won't talk about the ones that are in here, but you can read these later in your own time. But we had some more recently. I had a call from a person from Auburn, said last year he was homeless. And the reason he was homeless was he was an electrician and he lost his glasses. Now, for you and I, that would be something simple. Well, you go get another pair of glasses. But for him, that was the last straw. And he lost his job, he lost his home, and found himself living on the streets. He came to our stand down. We provided him the opportunity to get a new pair of glasses. And I got a call about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He called me just to say thank you. He said he got his glasses, he's able to go back to work. Since he was getting a paycheck, now he's got a place to live, and he's being a a productive member of society again. It's awesome. We had another family from Colfax that called and said, you know what, last year at the stand down, I was homeless. Now I've got my family back, I've got a job, and I'm back in a home again. It's amazing some of the stories that we hear. And veterans that just walking down the street will walk up to him and say, Chaplain Morgan, and I'll come over to him and they just want to say thank you, and said that made a big difference. With the stand down, we know that we're not going to help everybody, but those few that we can give a hand up and get them back into society and get them the help they need, get them a job and perhaps help them with their mental health or if they have issues with drugs or alcohol, give them the help that they need. So that's what we're all about. And I just want to say thank you so much for the support from the Board of Supervisors. I appreciate all of you so much and what you do and the support that you give us. And in this resolution helps us to raise the money to put this on. So it really makes a big difference. So thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Chaplain, and we're also very thankful that you've taken the time and the interest to organize and get together this stand down for the many veterans that we do have in Placer County that have served our country so honorably. And to that end, I'm going to go ahead and present you with this resolution, August 21st, 2012, in the matter of the resolution in support of the annual Placer County Veterans Stand Down being held to help veterans gain access to needed resources in one central location. Whereas the annual County Veteran Stand Down sponsored by Gold County Chaplaincy is being held on September 18th to 20th, 2012 at the Placer County Fairgrounds. Whereas the term stand down was developed by the military to grant battle-weary soldiers an opportunity to gather in a relatively safe and secure environment while they take care of their essential needs, rest, and recover from the battlefield. Whereas for many veterans, the battles continue long after they come home. They come in the form of homelessness, depression, anxiety, and difficulty with readjustment to regular living and working in society. They also come through the frustration of navigating the red tape to access the benefits they have so dearly earned. And whereas the stand down is designed to provide veterans with the resources, materials, and contacts needed to sustain their well-being, and whereas the stand down is run entirely by volunteers, professionals, and concerned citizens who give their time and services to promote the stand down philosophy to provide a hand up and not a handout to assist our veterans get back on their feet. And whereas Placer County being central location to the region, hosting the stand down in Placer County will afford veterans from neighboring counties as well as Placer County access to the services and resources they otherwise may not be able to reach. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Placer County Board of Supervisors supports the annual Placer County Veteran Stand Down being held September 18th through 20th, 2012, with best wishes for success with the program.
Chaplain Morgan, while you're passing that out, I just really wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for doing this again. Last year was the first year I did have the opportunity to go and participate, and it was a truly incredible experience. I also wanted to thank you for your email, I think from this morning, time flies, offering to do some additional reach out to some of our local veterans halls, because I know the 3 veterans halls that I represent, Auburn, Forest Hill, and Colfax, are very interested in participating in any way they can and really want to help in this process because they see the same issues that you're seeing, but on a much smaller, much more localized scale. And I'll be there, so thank you. And I'm hoping Supervisor Duran will be able to join me on the first day for some welcoming words.
Great.
Any other comments from the board before we let the chaplain go? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on to our 9:40 timed item, Health and Human Services, Older Adult Advisory Commission. William Reed, OAAC Chair, presenting.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Maureen, Bowman with the Adult System of Care, and I just wanted to briefly introduce Cheryl Trenwith, who is now your staff person that provides assistance to the Older Adult Advisory Commission. I would like to acknowledge Supervisor Holmes' aide, Ruth Alves, who is assisting us with the commission and has been a long time a supporter of this particular advisory body. So let's turn it over to Cheryl, who will introduce William Reed, who will be presenting to you this morning briefly. And we're excited that this commission, which you established a number of years ago, has continued to do work at looking and evaluating older adult needs in Placer County.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board. I did want to acknowledge also that we have a couple of commissioners in the audience today, Dave Wiltsey and Linda Brown, so I wanted to do that. My name is Cheryl Trenwith, and I'm a program manager with Health and Human Services Adult System of Care, and I staff the Older Adult Advisory Commission. It has truly been my pleasure this year to serve you, the board, and Health and Human Services in supporting the commission. The commission works hard to listen to the community on your behalf, to be very interested and invested in improving the lives of seniors in Placer County. I wanted to introduce to you the Older Adult Advisory Commission's chair to you, William Reed. William wears many hats in Placer County, and I probably can't even name all of them. He and I work together in several different areas. Mr. Reed is dedicated to and involved in the In-Home Supportive Services program here in Placer. He's also the chair of the In-Home Supportive Services Advisory Commission. But today he's here to present to you in his capacity as the chair of the Older Adult Advisory Commission, our annual report for 2011-2012. William?
Board, thank you for making the time this morning for me to tell you about this year's activities related to the Older Advisory Commission. My name is William Reed. I'm the chair of that commission. It is a pleasure that I will present to you the Commission 2011-2012 annual report. First, though, the Older Advisory Commission would like to thank and acknowledge Supervisor Holmes, the Board of Supervisors, the County CEO, as well as the Health and Human Services Director, Dr. Burton, and Adult System of Care Director, Maureen for their support of the Older Advisory Commission this past year. I thought I would start this morning with some background data on the growing population in senior population in Placer County. According to information gathered and summarized by the Area 4 Agency on Aging, we're experiencing an unprecedented increase in the Placer senior population as the baby boomers are aging. According to estimates, by 2040, we will have 3.5 times the number of seniors that were here in 2000, a growth rate of 248%. This is 78% greater than the statewide estimates of 170%. For the most frail and vulnerable seniors, those 85 and older, who use the most of the elder care services, it is projected that in Placer there will be a 6-fold increase in the same time period. It is clear that in Placer County, as in all counties and jurisdictions in the state as well as the nation, the significant increase in the senior population will require our attention and our best efforts to address the growing needs. With the support of the board, the Older Advisory Commission has been working to fulfill that mission, which is to provide a voice for the older adults and to advise the Placer County Department of Health and Human Services and this board on the matters relating to the creation and delivery of services that will improve the quality of life for the older adults in Placer County. As our annual report will show, we have been working to fulfill that mission. This, our 8th year. We have before you our annual report, and I thought I might highlight a few of our accomplishments. This year we had a surge of interest in the commission, and the board has been able to appoint 3 outstanding new commissioners to represent the community and provide of services. We will continue to work on our way to expand the commission's visibility and to encourage public input. We have continued to write articles about issues of interest to seniors, and those are published in the Sun City News, the Forest Hill Messenger, the Auburn Centennial, and the Auburn Journal. We will also we will also enjoy participation at our meetings by the Board of Supervisors staff and members of the Colfax MAC members. And just last month, we were able to co-host a town hall meeting with the Area 4 Agency on Aging, and severely appreciate Supervisor Holmes, and who was a panelist as well as attending that meeting. The Commission is looking forward to doing site visits to some of our providers this upcoming year to experience firsthand some of the services being delivered in our community. I also wanted to highlight some of the speakers and information that the Commission enjoyed at our monthly meetings. We get excellent data from our representatives from the Area 4 Agency on Aging, and learn about important and relative legislative issues from our members who attend the California legislature, as well as provider organizations and community members. Our speakers this year included information from hospice care, gerontology issues, particularly elder challenges and opportunities, technologies that support seniors to age in place, and transportation plans to benefit the community and Placer seniors, just to name a few. On behalf of the Commission, I would like to thank you for allowing us to make this short presentation, and hope you will enjoy a review of the annual report. As I mentioned earlier, we really do appreciate your continued interest and support. Do you have any questions?
Supervisor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Reed, for that report, and thank you for acknowledging my support for the Older Adult Advisory Commission. But truly, the recognition belongs to my trustee aide, Ruth Owls, who diligently shows up and keeps me apprised of what you guys are up to. So anyhow, I want to thank Ruth publicly for her support and contributing to the Older Adult Advisory Commission. And again, thank you for your leadership.
I would really like to second Supervisor Holmes' comments. While I still think of myself in my brain as being about 19 years old, when I look in the mirror, I see the sad reality. And I'm just really very pleased and very thankful to individuals such as yourself and Supervisor Holmes for kind of laying the groundwork for all of us as we move through the aging process, and really helping us understand what opportunities and obstacles are out there. And I think it's important that we all have an understanding of that. So I really want to thank you, everyone else who serves on it. I think Dave Wiltsey is hiding in the back, but he has just been an absolutely tireless advocate in the greater Colfax area, really the whole west slope of Placer County. And my thanks sincere to all of you for your service. So any other questions or comments from the board? Anyone in the audience like to make a comment, ask a question while you have the opportunity? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for the report. Thank you, Maureen. Well, it's not quite 10 o'clock, so we're going to move on to our next departmental item, which will be Facility Services, Side Hill Citrus, Agricultural Conservation Easement, Sierra Nevada Conservancy Grant Application Submittal. Longest title of the day award goes to that one, I think. Mark Rideout, presenting.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mark Rideout, Facility Services, here today with a number of members of the agricultural community, Placer Land Trust representatives, and Lauren Clark to answer some questions and give a presentation about some of the rating criteria associated with this item. The actions that we're requesting your board to take today include adopting a resolution which authorizes the Community Development Resource Agency Director to submit an application for $325,000 to the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. And that's for their Proposition 84 Preservation of Ranches grant program. And it's to acquire an agricultural conservation easement over the 47-acre Side Hill property that's in rural Lincoln. Associated with that would be to execute any and all documents necessary to complete the application. The second action that we'll ask you to take today is to authorize a commitment of $100,000 of county resources, net county cost. That's $75,000 in cash from the Open Space Fund and a $25,000 commitment from the DeWitt Enterprise Fund, which will pay for staff costs and legal expense associated with completing the transaction. The third action would be then to direct Facility Services staff, if the county is successful in securing the grant funds, to return to your board to complete the conservation easement transaction, the agreement purchase sale.
and authorizes to acquire the conservation easement. As I said, basically it's a 47-acre property in rural Lincoln. It's at 4065 Pleasant Hill Road. It's currently zoned farm designation with a 10-acre minimum. The property is improved with a residence, a shop, and a packing shed. And basically, the Ferreras purchased this property in 1975, and it's now operated as a certified organic ranch. They've increased the acreage to 47 since that time, and it's now planted with about 2,500 mandarin trees on 24 acres of the ranch. In 2010, Mr. Ferrera approached the county with the interest in selling a conservation easement which would conserve the property's agricultural resources in perpetuity. Did you want to talk, Lauren, now about the easement practicalities?
Let me give a policy foundation briefly for the board as well. The foundation for the recommendation in this action today and similar activities that we've brought to the board over the years is found in the general plan. Goal 7A of the Placer County General Plan states to provide for the long-term conservation and use of agriculturally designated lands and uses. And there's a variety of ways of doing that, one of which was through the implementation of the Placer Legacy Program that started in 2000, which states as a goal to maintain an agricultural segment of the economy, and then as a task to have that happen, Placer Legacy documents state to prioritize the acquisition of agricultural property that contains multiple conservation values. So working our way sort of at the global scale, countywide scale, the general plan through Placer Legacy down to the very specifics of a property, you find a lot of language that provides both the policy foundation as well as the means by which staff does a variety of things to prioritize these acquisitions. What you find on the subject property are those multiple conservation values. Not only is this an agricultural operation, an organic citrus farm, but it also has both oak woodlands and riparian habitat present on the property, and it's within a community of Placer County that is going through an evolution. Largely, the rural residential activities over the past 30 to 40 years are starting to transition back into farming, one because the soils are there, which includes agricultural soils on this property, but also because of the water infrastructure that is present all throughout the foothills, which to a large extent has been underutilized for agricultural practices with the demise of sort of the orchards that occurred starting in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. In terms of the grant application itself, we looked at a couple of programs for this property. One was the Department of Conservation. Their program funded the Natural Trading Company conservation easement that this board supported a couple years ago. That program was not available for this operation, but very recently we found something in the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. It's a $5 million program for ranches and agricultural land, which, to quote from the program, it's for projects that support the long-term ecological values and economic viability of working ranches and other agricultural lands and the health of their associated watersheds. A pre-application was given to the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, sort of testing the waters with them. They had a process for that, and the pre-application was favorably received, and thus the invitation to a full application, which has led us to the board today.
Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. All right.
Conservancy on the 22nd of October, and to go along with that application, we need to have an appraisal. And over the last couple weeks, Facility Services staff has been working with the applicant or the property owner and planning to come up with a set of material terms for the conservation easement so the appraiser can be informed about the deducts or adds that might go on the value based on the use and development restrictions associated with preserving these attributes of the property. And just briefly, it's to prevent any use of development that would impair the property's agricultural or oak woodland characteristics. The conservation easement will acquire 3 of the 5 development rights that currently exist on the property. There'd be a limitation of the amount of buildable building that could be put on the property. And then the 5 parcels would be merged into one, and there'd be no opportunity for future subdivision of the property. The owner has expressed a willingness to contribute $200,000 towards a bargain sale. Based on the Natural Trading Company's values, staff estimates that the purchase price could be $600,000. So with the $200,000, there's $400,000. The $325,000 Sierra Nevada Conservancy grant, if we're successful in receiving that, the $100,000 from the county. And then additionally, Placer Land Trust has offered to put $10,000 into escrow to pay for the appraisal that we'll do for the property. We've received a willing seller letter from the property owner. On August 13th, the Agricultural Commission recommended that your board approve this, and we're very excited to bring this forward today, and staff recommends that your board approve the recommended actions.
Thank you, and my apologies. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Supervisor Euler.
Lauren, what are we really getting for $100,000?
The $25,000 in-kind services and then $75,000 cash would result in an in perpetuity agricultural conservation easement on the 47-acre site. So in the end, it's purchasing of the development rights of the property, retiring primarily the residential rights off of the property to maintain it for agricultural production.
But the development rights as currently zoned would only yield possibly an additional 3 parcels or 3 homes?
There's a maximum of 5, and with secondary dwellings, or granny flats as we used to refer to them, the property owner is retaining one of those rights, and there's an existing home. So it's a retirement of 3, but it's a 5 maximum.
Okay. But we're retiring 3?
Correct.
And the zoning in the area is ag-residential?
It's farm zone 10-acre minimum, and there's some 20-acre minimum nearby, but the subject property and surrounding is farm 10.
And I might also add, there's also a provision that the 2 rights that he would retain would be contained within 2 building envelopes, one 2.5 acres, one 1.5 acres, which would prohibit them from spreading buildings and structures out across the farm landscape.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay. Anyone in the audience want to question or comment on this? Please come forward. I recognize this fabulous individual.
Good morning, Board of Supervisor members. I'm Christine Turner, and I'm on the Placer County Farm Bureau Board of Directors, and I'm here on their behalf today in support of a permanent conservation easement on Rich Ferreira's family-owned and operated Side Hill Citrus Ranch. Side Hill Citrus has been certified as an organic farm since 1989. The ranch sells high-quality organic citrus and other organic produce to consumers from Placer County through on-farm sales and their fruit stand in Newcastle. They also ship fruit to many different states across the country, which all contributes to the local economy. The Placer County Farm Bureau Board of Directors is very much in support of preserving family farms and ranches in Placer County through conservation easements and working with those people who are willing to sell their development rights. The Farm Bureau Board of Directors took a look at this particular ranch in June of 2011, took action at that time to write a letter of support to the Land Trust, and I'm just here in support and encourage you to take the opportunity at a very good deal financially to preserve a working ranch and farm in Placer County. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I do see Rich in the audience. Was there anything you wanted to say before we continue with public comment, or are you just happy to sit quietly? Okay. I thought you might be happy to sit quietly.
Good morning, board members. My name is Brian Kaminsky. I'm the owner of the Natural Trading Company, a grateful recipient of a Placer Legacy conservation easement a few years ago. And I just, for some of you that may not know Rich, as a farmer for 17 years, he's been farming longer than I have. He's an inspiration to me and the other members in the farming community, and he's a real deal. He's really doing it, providing really great quality food for Placer County and beyond. And just in our neighborhood, we're in the same neighborhood, and I can visually see his place and his mandarin trees from my property. So I think I definitely support this, and it's starting to create a lot of agriculture in our neighborhood, and I appreciate your thoughts on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else in the audience like to comment on this? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board on this?
Staff recommendation. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion before we move forward? Supervisor Euler, your light's on.
Yeah, I can't support this, and not because I don't support agriculture, but just because we have we have very limited resources, and we have a lot that we want to be able to accomplish. And these open space fund dollars we're going to be encumbering for this, I don't believe it is the best utilization of those dollars given what we have that we're dealing with the PCCP and requirements on a stay-ahead provision there that we need to be able to achieve in order for that program to be successful. I don't see any imminent risk of this farm ceasing to operate or all of a sudden 3 new homes showing up instead of mandarin orchards. I don't, for a bang for the buck standpoint, I don't know that this is the best utilization of these funds. And while I wish the gentleman well in his farming endeavors, I think that these dollars should be dedicated toward those areas where we will actually receive something a bit more tangible in return, particularly as it regards our stay-ahead requirements on the vernal pool wetlands that we're required to obtain under the PCCP.
Supervisor Duran?
And I'll just add, I'm a little bit perplexed about this as well. Nothing against agriculture. The timing, I think, is a little bit difficult for me to support as well. So.
Any other comments? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our 10 o'clock timed item. Let me find that. This is a Health and Human Services item, Environmental Health Statutorily Mandated Safe Body Art Program. We will be conducting a public hearing, and we will be being asked to adopt a resolution setting fees. So at this time, we'll have a presentation from Ken Stewart, and then we will open the public hearing.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm Ken Stewart, Interim Director of Environmental Health. I have with me today Diane Garricky, who is our Supervisor of Consumer Protection, and she's really been the glue that helped us put this program together. On October 9th, 2011, AB 300, the Safe Body Art was signed into law by the state. It applies to all body art practices, including piercing, tattooing, and permanent cosmetics. The effective date of legislation was January 1st, 2012, with an implementation date of July 1st, 2012. It now requires the enforcement of the state law, health and safety code, by a local enforcement agency, in which case we have been designated as the local enforcement agency for the safe body art for Placer County. It specifies that the local enforcement agencies will directly rely on state law directives to create and manage the program. This means that there is not a need for additional laws as far as local laws as far as structures, operation standards, or anything like this. It requires that the division registers, permits, and inspects all tattooing, body piercing, and permanent cosmetic facilities on an annual basis, and registers and permits all practitioners on an annual basis. It also requires that mechanical and stud and clamp ear piercing facilities register one time with the division. We have developed an initial inventory of about 35 body art facilities for the county and an estimated 80 practitioners. In our contacts to this point, we've received already applications from 21 owners and 54 practitioners, and we haven't even set our fees, so we're moving along on it. The fees included in our resolution are based on the projected time each state-mandated action, such as registration, review of credentials, file review, and so forth, and the actual inspections will take. Projected staff activity time and subsequent fees have been compared to those in Sacramento, Nevada, El Dorado, Kern, Riverside, Santa Clara, and Monterey counties, and our proposed Placer County fees are equal to or slightly less than those proposed in the comparison counties. It is anticipated our initial invoices for the body art and practitioners will be sent in September, and afterwards the annual permit fees will be coming out in July. Program outreach to our local body arts industry has been ongoing. We've started several months ago with development of our website. It includes everything from forms to guidelines to whatever. We had a very nice article in the Auburn Journal on July 17th about the program coming on. And then our latest was August 10th. We had a workshop with practitioners and owners. We had about 35 people in attendance and actually went over the implementation of the program and talked with them on our fees and how they were justified and so forth. The proposal seems very well received by the industry. They've indicated they'd be here today. I hope they will be, but you can't be sure. Notice of public hearing was was published in the August 10th Auburn Journal and the Tahoe World, and copies of the fee study are available at the clerk of the board. I should also add that since our August 10th meeting, we've sent letters to all the city managers explaining the program. We have to recognize that this doesn't recognize city boundaries or anything else. It applies to all cities within the county also. We're also concerned that we don't get approving facilities that aren't in compliance with their zoning requirements. So I've had very good responses from 4 of the cities so far saying thank you, and we look forward to working with you. The projected fees for our first year are $33,000, a little over, and then $23,000 in subsequent years. This should provide for basically full cost recovery. It's not a huge program, but it's one that we're figuring on absorbing basically with our existing staff. Today, the board is requested to conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution pursuant to Placer County Code that sets the amount of fees that the Environmental Health Division can charge for the new state-mandated Safe Body Art program. Any question?
Supervisor Duran.
Yes, I just wanted to get some clarification. So, and I know that there are quite a few ear-piercing stations. You know, you go to the mall or you go to a strip mall or someplace. So they are actually included in this state health and safety code. Now, I notice on your Exhibit A at the top here, 1401 mechanical ear-piercing facility, it makes reference, and there's a 2 down at the bottom, $40. And I'm trying to figure out, it says annual fee, and then down here it says one-time fee established in the health and safety code. So is that an annual fee, or is that just once into perpetuity?
One time.
Okay.
You mean on the mechanical piercing? Yes, it's one time. I'm hearing impaired, so that's why I'm not here.
Okay.
Yes, it is a one-time fee. I think the law says it has to be not less than 25 and not more than 50. We kind of went in between. Subsequently, it could be increased. But once the piercing industry is registered with us, the practitioners do not have to register. And so it's a one-time occurrence.
Again, so there is a delineation between the existing folks that are in the mall or doing, selling jewelry or whatever, and the folks that are actually doing the body piercing and the tattooing.
Absolutely. And we do not have to inspect those facilities that are just doing ear piercing, in the malls and so forth. They just register with us, and then we basically, that's the record.
Yeah, and that would be my concern, that they would be pulled into this.
No.
When they probably have, or already regulated under something else. So, all right, thank you.
Any other questions from the board before I open the public hearing? All right, seeing none. I will open the public hearing at this time. Is there any member of the public who would like to come forward and comment or ask any questions on this? I see our representative from the industry. Please come forward.
There we go.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Jesse Fuller from Syndicate Tattoo. Been in business here in Auburn for 6 years, almost. And we are in full support of the bill. We have been since the beginning. Back in '89, they did suggested regulations, and when we opened in '07, we used those to open with. And we found that they coincide right along, and it's worked out perfect. The one thing that we had a concern with was, as owners, I would say a large majority of us are also practitioners. And so our fees are being toppled up doubles. There's $80 initial plus the $80 a year for the practitioner, but also for the facility we have $160 every year plus the $215 initial. So we were wondering if there was any way we could get some sort of resolution to where the owner-operators could get maybe just a little bit of a discount. That was the only thing that we had we discussed that over in the county meeting on the 10th or whatever that was. And I think other than we're in full support, that's all I really have to say.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Very, very good issue that you raised. Ken, is there any way that we can evaluate an owner-operator fee where we're essentially doing the facility and the operator inspection at the same time?
Yes, there is, if you so desire. Right now, that I know of, Sacramento County is the only one that has a reduced fee for the practitioner if they're also the owner. All the other counties we've looked at and talked have said no. It's still a lot of work. So if the board chose they wanted to combine it or reduce it, we could do that. I won't guarantee you that it'll give us full cost recovery, but it may be a benefit to the owner-operator.
Okay, thank you. It may be something that we want to have a look at after having implemented the program at some point in the future. Take another look at it and see if there is a way to combine or reduce those fees. It does seem a little bit like...
I think it would be reasonable. We just at this point said, right now let's move forward. We indicated in our public meeting with the practitioners that we certainly would be coming back. They were concerned, is their COLAs included? And I said, yes, that's a potential. So we didn't try to hide anything. We are planning, hopefully, by next spring to kind of look at all the fees throughout our program anyway, and that may be appropriate time to do it also.
Okay. Again, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this? Please come forward.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Bridget Barnes. I'm here on behalf of the City of Colfax. And we were contacted and very much appreciate the advance notice of coming. The question we had was coordination relative to especially the temporary events. The concern that the city is going to have from a zoning or prior approval issue, and I would imagine this would also apply to Auburn, although I didn't contact them to ask, is when there are going to be temporary events, let's say 4th of July or other events, how soon we can get notification, because the plan for the city was to merely require the operators to provide evidence that they had already gone through the Placer County system and had the inspection and certificate. So the issue will then be timing relative to applications coming in for booths. And so I wanted to raise that and request that a timing methodology get set up to be dealing with the city, since the county is going to be operating the inspection and approvals.
And it looks like we may have some information relating to that.
We don't have anything specific set up right now, but generally what we do is when we get that application in, we would just forward you a copy asking you for comments and what your concerns are.
Right, and my concern was that we'd probably have to have a cutoff date for temporaries because of, oftentimes they're set up like only 2 weeks ahead for special events, which is not going to allow a lot of time for your inspection.
Right now we
provisions.
require at least a 2-week notification.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Diane Gerecke, Gereke.
All right. Any other comments or questions on this? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. We're being asked to adopt a resolution on the fees. What's the pleasure of the board?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, do we want to put a provision in to bring this back to address the young man's concern as far as his business? He's got a business license he has to pay, and then a practitioner, and then having the business. So I don't know, did you want to put a... Yeah,
I would like to adopt this with the direction that we revisit this, I would say over the course of the next year, so that within no more than a year we can come back and evaluate the owner-operator specific question. And I'd also like to give direction to staff to work with the cities on the temporary events to make sure that that does flow appropriately. I'm sorry, Supervisor Euler, I think you made that motion. Are you willing to let that be wrapped into it?
Yeah, I mean, the motion is rather just adopting the resolution that sets the fees before us. We're not doing anything to change those fees.
Right.
We're not doing anything to change the governance of the body art program in adopting this motion. So I think the motion in and of itself should probably stand alone. However, I think staff has fairly clearly heard, and I'll add my voice, that we'd like to revisit the owner-operator issue, and so I think staff has heard from our board that they should probably bring it back. So I think the motion
perfect.
is establishing the program by virtue of the resolution ought to stand as it is.
All right. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll now move to our 10:15 timed item. This is a Community Development Resource Agency item, Sugar Bowl Academy Relocation Rezone. We're being asked to conduct a public hearing. Michael Johnson and Alan Bruce. Alan, welcome.
Thank you.
Long way from Tahoe.
Yes. My name is, let's see what we got here. My name is Alan Bruce. I'm the project planner for the Sugar Bowl Academy relocation. And thank you for having me down here. And this particular project, we are looking for a rezone at Sugar Bowl. It's a rezone for an academy that to consolidate one location. It's a 2.32 acre piece of parcel. And as part of this project, it will be a rezone of another parcel, so there's a no net loss of open space on this particular project. To get everyone oriented where it's located, obviously it's in Sugar Bowl. It's just by the Nevada County line. As you come into Sugar Bowl right by Mount Judah, there's a 13-acre parcel, and as part of this project, the Planning Commission did approve with a minor subdivision of land on this to the 2.3-acre parcel out of this 13-acre piece of land. This is what the Planning Commission considered. It is a academy. It's sixth graders through 12th graders on this particular piece of property on a phased development. The timing of the development will start off right now with regards to dormitories as well as some of the teaching facilities. And then ultimately there will be 5 buildings that will be built at this particular location as funding becomes available as a nonprofit organization. This is where Mount Judah entry is, right at this location, existing parking lot, the West Bay. And this is the new facilities. You enter it, and these are the 5 locations. If people are familiar with the area, this is the railroad that's located here. Some history on the rezone. In the past, the board did, in 2010, did a rezone, what was called Gondola North Project. It was a similar type of proposal with regards to the rezone. They rezoned open space at this location, provides single-family development, and in its place, they rezoned this particular piece of land to from RFDR to open space. So again, there was a no net loss of open space. The applicant is proposing something similar today. It would be a rezone of this parcel I mentioned, just coming into Mount Judah location where the school facility would be built. And then this is where the rezone from RF to open space. So again, there would be a no net loss of open space as part of this project. This is an example of the rendering of what the facility would look like through design site review with the rezone. So we're looking for today, staff is to have the board adopt a mitigated negative declaration, and then also to adopt an ordinance to rezone from the open space zoning district to the RFBX DS, 2-acre minimum. The DS is a design site overlay on this particular property, so staff will review the type of materials and colors of the project and the rezoning from RFDR to open space for the no net loss. So that's what staff is looking for today, and I'm here to answer any questions too on this project.
Thank you, Alan. Do we have anyone here today from the project proponents?
Yes, we do. Chris Parker is here, and then Brad Sherhill also is here.
Okay. I'd like to offer the two of you an opportunity, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Thank you, Chair Montgomery and Board of Supervisors. Good to see you today. I'm Brad Sherhall with TLA Engineering and Planning, 1528 Eureka Road, Roseville, California. I am representing Sugar Bowl Corporation and also the Sugar Bowl Ski Team Foundation today. The Sugar Bowl Ski Team Foundation has operated an academy up on Donner Summit for about, I think, since 1990 or so. And today we're here in the final step to bring the foundation and the academy to Placer County. The facilities in Nevada County were not really appropriate anymore. They were ancient. It wasn't going to allow for them to grow their foundation and the school. The school provides college preparatory education from 6th to 12th grade, and the students also have the ability to practice and learn the art of both alpine and Nordic skiing. I want to thank staff for their presentation this morning. They've been very helpful through this whole process. I don't really have anything additional to add. In conclusion, I simply ask that you consider and vote affirmatively for the rezone to allow the Sugar Bowl Academy to occupy space in Sugar Bowl. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Parker, was there anything you wanted to add? Okay. Supervisor Duran.
Yes, thank you very much. I have a couple questions for Mr. Parker. What are we talking about total cost of the project?
Total cost of the project, I don't necessarily know. Chris, do you have an idea?
Phase 1, 11 million, total 20.
Phase 1, 11 million, total project, 20 million or so.
And what type of job creation? How many employees?
Not a lot of additional employees. Certainly, there's a lot of construction jobs that come with this. The employees with the academy currently, that number's not going to grow substantially. Okay. There will be a few additional employees that may be provided by Sugar Bowl. For instance, there are certain services that Sugar Bowl will provide, and they need additional help for some of those things.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I'd just like to note that this did go in front of the Donors Summit Municipal Advisory Council, who voted unanimously in support of it. Unlike so many of the projects that we see come in front of us, I have literally heard no one speak against this in the Summit area. And in fact, sort of the uniform chorus is, this is exactly the sort of development we want to see that really adds to community, brings people who live there, if not year-round, at least full-time for much of the year, and really will add vitality and value to our community. So it's kind of nice to see a development within a community that is so broadly supported. Having said that, this is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing. If there's any member of the public who would like to comment on this, now is your opportunity. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring this back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. All right, we are a few minutes short of our 10:30 timed items, so we will move on to Health and Human Services. Item 10, Adult System of Care, Proclamation. Maureen Bowman.
Good morning again. Maureen Bowman with the Adult System of Care. I have for your consideration a request to approve a proclamation proclaiming September 2012 as Mental Health, Alcohol and Drug Addiction Recovery Month in Placer County, and to support our local Recovery Happens event that is scheduled on September 22nd at Auburn Recreation Park. There's no county general fund cost associated with this request. In Placer County, many people are living productive and satisfying lives as a result of recovery from mental health conditions and or alcohol and drug dependence. Residents of Placer County have experienced recovery on their own through treatment programs or with assistance of self-help, faith-based organizations, and medication treatment. There is no one path to recovery. Each person's intervention and treatment is unique to his or her own individual needs, and all paths to recovery will be celebrated at our 12th Annual Recovery Happens event on September 22nd at Auburn Recreation District Park here in Auburn. This year we are highlighting not only recovery from alcohol and drug, but also recovery from mental illness, because we feel like all of those paths to recovery are intertwined and should be celebrated. Over 25 community partners will join our System of Care staff and Mental Health, Alcohol, and Drug Advisory Board in sponsoring the community's 2012 celebration Recovery Happens. Supervisor Holmes has been a long-standing supporter of this event and also many times a speaker at our annual event. The national theme this year is Join the Voices for Recovery, It's Worth It, which really emphasizes that although the road to recovery may be difficult, the benefits of preventing and overcoming mental health, substance use disorders are significant and valuable to individuals, families, and really to our whole community. Placer County's Recovery Happens events on September 22nd will promote the critical message that prevention works, treatment is effective, and people do recover. I'd just like to highlight some of the resources that Placer County generously donates. These are federal, state, and local dollars. But in Placer County, there are over $6 million dedicated to substance abuse treatment, and these dollars assist 1,100 people to achieve recovery in our publicly funded treatment, contracting with many local community organizations. Additionally, more than 500 people receive information and resources at our established drop-in screening clinics that we have for alcohol and drug issues. And the adult mental health programs includes $22 million to serve those persons with severe mental illness, with crisis services, hospitalizations, housing, and ongoing treatment and support. Over 5,000 people benefit from these services, and additionally 6,000 more benefit from outreach and engagement strategies in the Welcome Center and other specific engagement programs. Persons in recovery help themselves and the community. Treatment has proven to be cost-effective. We know conservative estimates show that for every dollar invested in substance abuse treatment, there is a return of $7, and that when health care costs are included in that, the return is a ratio of 12 to 1. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but would ask the board to proclaim September 2012 as Recovery Month in Placer County and to support our local Recovery Happens event on September 22nd.
I see no questions from the board. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this? Supervisor Holmes.
Oh, it'll just be my honor to approve this proclamation. It's always a great event, having been there several years, to see that, recovery does happen. And you'll see people there that have been in recovery for 30 days. You see people there that have been in recovery for 30 years. But it brings together the whole community that understands that there is a path to recovery. And I encourage anyone and join them in that event. So I make a motion that we approve the.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Maureen, while we have you, let's move on to B.
Okay. The next item is to request your approval of a contract with the California Department of Mental Health and the California Department of Health Care Services for the management of the mental health managed care program for Placer County. It's a retro from April 1st, 2012 through December 31st, 2012, including the state's expected revenue total of $11 million and our projected county match of $2.5 million, and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign subsequent amendments up to a cumulative total of 10% of the contract amount. A little background. The Welfare and Institution Codes mandates that the State Department of Mental Health implement and administer the managed health care contract for Medi-Cal eligible residents in the state. And now that is going to turn over to the Department of Health Care Services in that transition at the state level. Placer County Health and Human Services has agreed to operate the mental health plan for Placer County since November of 1997. So this isn't a new program for Placer County. And as I said, we're transitioning over to the Department of Health Care Services. And in that transition and with new negotiations with local counties, what was finalized was this 9-month contract that is part of this year into what we expect December of next year, at which time we do expect to bring you forward a newly negotiated contract with the state and all counties that will be coming forward. So this is what was negotiated as an interim at this time, partly because they couldn't find resolution with every single issue in the contract. This program provides a continuum of specialty mental health services to children and adults meeting criteria using county-operated programs, contracted community agencies, and a network of professional providers to achieve treatment goals for persons with a range of mental health disorders, all on Medi-Cal. We're essentially the HMO of mental health services for the Medi-Cal population. The state has chosen to contract using an extremely conservative approach to assure counties have a tool to obtain all the federal dollars that could possibly be available to them. And so I would just have to tell you that their estimate of $11 million way exceeds our local estimates. And so we are estimating closer to $4.25 million. The way they got the estimates when we queried the state was that they were using statewide dollars, and they were sort of assigning them per percentage, and they weren't really using county-specific data for some of the estimates. And so because many counties discovered that they were much different than they were expecting. So it's in the contract. We will bill all the Medi-Cal that we can bill, and we have resources to match all the Medi-Cal that we will be drawing down. It's a 50-50 proposition. But just for your purposes, we think that number is just extremely high, so we felt like we needed to just share that with you. So the total revenue to be received under this contract, as I said, they believe it's $11 million. We're estimating $4.25 million required match of county general funds of $2.5 million, and that's over the 2 years. For 11-12, our number was $750,000 for this contract period, and we expect another $1.8 million in 12-13. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about this contract, but do recommend approval at this time.
I see no questions from the board. Are there any comments or questions from the audience? All right, seeing none, bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, let's finish with Health and Human Services. We'll have Richard Connect come forward with Children's System of Care, Substance Abuse, and Mental Health Services.
Thank you, Chairwoman Montgomery, members of the board. Richard Connect with the Children's System of Care. The State Department of Mental Health Block Grant has, since 1994, funded a variety of mental health services in Placer County for both adults and children. In its last full year of completion, nearly 200 residents were assisted with housing and related supports, counseling and case management services, all which provide a level of independence, which helps in avoiding hospitalization or other institutional settings. This year's grant allocation from the state totals $708,154. No county general funds are required, and we recommend support from you for receipt of these funds. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, any from the audience? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to our 10:30 and final timed item. This is the Community Development Resource Agency. This is a third-party appeal of the Planning Commission approval of a variance to a freestanding sign height, otherwise known as Lucky's Travel Plaza. Jerry Haas presenting.
Thank you, Chair Montgomery. This item was originally noticed as a request for continuance for your board to consider the planning, an appeal of the Planning Commission approval of a sign height variance for the Lucky's Travel Plaza, that's this Valero up at Cisco Grove. Following release of the public notice for this hearing, the applicant submitted a formal withdrawal of the variance request for the reasons that are cited in the staff report as Exhibit 1 in his letter. As a result, staff recommends that your board take action to accept the applicant's written withdrawal of the approval written withdrawal of the variance application, PVAA 2011-0304. Also take action to void the Planning Commission's May 24th, 2012 approval of the variance to sign height, and also to deny the appeal filed by Friends of the North Fork of the Planning Commission's May 24th, 2012 action as moot. Be able to have any questions.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, seeing none, I'll open it to the public. Is there anyone in the public who wants to raise a comment or question on this?
Good morning, Supervisors. Michael Garabedian, representing Friends of the North Fork American River. The good thing here about this whole process is that the county had the foresight to create the Design Sierra District along Interstate 80 in the Sierras. And what that means is that where there's a commercial zoning along Interstate Agency, it has a DS, and that means that the proposed signs, proposed things such as the diesel and the installation for serving diesel at the Lucky's Travel Plaza require a design agreement between the county and the applicant. But that's about as far as the goodness here goes from our point of view. In 38 years of working on land use issues in California and New York, I've never seen such a messy process. It's not to fault anyone, but the staff report you have makes it look kind of simple. And before the Planning Commission, the report was simple, and the applicant in his letter says all he was asking for was a simple variance. Well, it's by no means so simple. We appealed 6 different things to you, and planning says the only appeal before you is the variance. But just from the applicant's point of view, a year before the application for the variance, he had an application in also with a CEQA exemption, but he had an application in that dealt with the diesel facility there that would be upground and visible and so forth. Towards the end of that process, his lawyer, according to the file, advised him he'd better submit a new application because it's so messy. It's so complicated. And it was during that process that it became evident to staff that they told him he needed a variance for the sign height. I don't know if the applicant knew all along that he was asking for a higher sign than the variance required or not. But had it not been for that variance, we wouldn't be here today. This process never would have seen the light of day because a design agreement was entered into around September 2011 between the county and the applicant. Other design agreements for high country diesel facilities and so forth had CEQA process. This one didn't. There is no application for a sign yet here. If the applicant does submit an application for a sign someday, then we will see exactly what he wants to do, and hopefully that may require a CEQA analysis. And that's made this process very difficult not to know. But it was only at the Planning Commission, because of this appeal there, that we saw that the sign, that what was proposed as a Vacaville, at least at that point, what was being considered was a Vacaville style sign.
And Mr. Garabedian, if you could wrap up fairly quickly, please.
The need that we see, our solution to the difficulty, the problem, the complication, we submitted a request to Michael Johnson on May 29th asking for a meeting. A meeting was scheduled to go over about a dozen points that we wanted to discuss. It's been postponed. We requested that meeting be set. We need to find out how the public can be notified of these design agreements and sign applications. There's no public notice now. Maybe we could submit envelopes. I don't know. We need to know about them, and there needs to be public involvement in those processes so that there's public input. We shouldn't have to have a variance application to have our say.
Excellent. And I'm sure that CDRA is willing to meet with you to discuss these general policy questions rather than anything project-specific since this project's been withdrawn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this? All right, I'll bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the applicant's written withdrawal of variance application. We void the Planning Commission's May 24th, 2012 approval of the variance to sign height and deny the appeal filed by the Friends of the North Fork of the Planning Commission's May 24th, 2012 action as mute.
Second.
All right. Wow. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Let the record reflect that Supervisor Euler is out of the room, unless he's snuck back in and I can't see him. All right. Now he's sneaking back in. We will move to Public Works. Item number 11. This is a flood and conservation easement on the Solachi Farms property.
Good morning, Chairwoman, members of the board. My name is Ken Grimm with the Department of Public Works. Today we're asking you to authorize the filing of a grant application for up to $3.5 million for a flood and conservation easement as well as restoration on the Solachi Farms property, and authorize the Director of Public Works to sign any necessary documents associated with that application. In addition to that, we're also asking for your authorization of up to $700,000 in expenditure of open space funds or other potential match sources should we be granted the grant award. The grant program is sponsored by Department of Water Resources, their Flood Safe program for flood control projects in the Central Valley. Funding comes from Proposition 1E, which was approved by the voters, I believe, back in 2006. Eligible projects include those that provide for environmental stewardship as well as flood control benefits. The proposed property, actually shown here in red, highlighted, is Solachi Farms. It's located on Coon Creek, right on the Sutter County, Placer County border. We do have a willing seller letter from Mr. Solachi. Current use of that property is currently, or mainly, in rice production. There's also some other crops he grows there, but the bottom and the top end, those areas that are crosshatched in both areas, are all in rice. A couple photos also. This just shows the property. Upper left shows Coon Creek. Lower left shows the riparian corridor, and then there shows some of the fields moving towards the south. Location is, let's go that way. Location is actually an excellent location, both for some flood control, potential flood control benefits, as well as open space values. I'm not an expert in open space values, but this is located on Coon Creek. You can see where the creek actually bisects the property, where Coon Creek enters into Placer County, as well as this is right where the county jogs over with Sutter County, providing for any type of future open space, providing excellent connectivity from the north and to the south. It all kind of goes through this little pinch point area. The green also shows some of the existing reserve areas like Lakeview Farms that are located within the area. But the reason why I'm here today sponsoring this is really because of the potential flood benefits for the project. And to understand that, first we need to understand that all the flood benefits we're talking about accrue downstream from the project site. Downstream here is actually Sutter County. And so what we do is we see this as a way to mitigate our future development impacts in the unincorporated county in the Cross Canal watershed. We see that particularly important and particularly beneficial for the Sunset Industrial Area. The Sunset Industrial Area is not in the Coon Creek watershed, but it is in the Cross Canal watershed. And this is the area we've been trying to mitigate for all the development we do in the unincorporated area that's north of the Dry Creek watershed. Currently, in the SIA, Sunset Industrial Area, we have individual projects have to do their own flood control. So piece by piece, people are setting aside little pieces of land as retention basins. This could be a way of cost effectively doing it once and for all for most of the area that's planned for development in the Cross Canal watershed. To give you an idea of the cost effectiveness, we're estimating $3,000 to $8,000 for what we call acre foot of retention area for this project. To put that in perspective, projects like Lakeview Farms as well as Reasons Farms are estimating somewhere in excess of $15,000 per acre foot to get that same sort of retention. And it's really because of how the fields are so close to the creek that we're able to utilize it in a very efficient manner. And when I talk about $3,000 to $8,000 per acre foot, that's the total cost. That's based on the $4 million project we're proposing here today. If you look at the net cost, which is really our $700,000 that we're talking about putting into the proposed project, it actually comes down much lower. It's about $1,000 to $2,000 per acre foot. So this is how it works. Rice production, mainly in the spring through the fall. In the winter, the fields are open. Because of its proximity and the fact that by gravity, water can drain from Coon Creek into the fields when we have an extreme event, we will allow that water to flow into the rice fields. We then hold it there by using the existing valve system and flashboards, close it up, we hold it until the peak water flow occurs downstream through Sutter County. Then we lift it up and we let the water drain out. A very simple system. All the infrastructure is in place except for some very modest improvements. Phase one, which is what we're proposing today, we're estimating about 500 acre feet of retention can be produced. Putting that into perspective, at full build out of the Sunset Industrial Area, we'll need somewhere around 700 acre feet. So this will get us a long way towards our goal, what we need to do. The project is expandable in the future. We're not proposing that now, but in the future we estimate we could get up to 800 acre feet of storage in Solachi Farms, although that would require some more improvements, particularly actually lowering the fields and raising the levees in order to create more capacity within the basins themselves. So our grant application proposal today is to obtain both the flood and conservation easements on the property, restore the riparian area, that's right along the creek, and then also do these modest improvements to do this phase one flood control project. Financially, the capital cost for the phase one project, approximately $1.5 million to get the easements necessary, about $1.8 million to restore that riparian corridor, and then about $600,000 in various flood improvement cost. Those are some of the check dams that already exist, but doing some improvements so that they can be operated more efficiently. To operate, though, as a flood control facility, there will be some operational costs also. We're estimating that about $20,000 a year. That's because somebody, although it's already all there, somebody's going to have to make sure that everything's working well, so when that extreme event comes up, making sure there are protocols in place, that everyone knows what they're doing, and then when the time comes, water is let in, stopped, and then water is let out. But again, very cost effective. We think that long-term operational cost, when we're ready to start operating as such, the most appropriate place for that money to come is from those who benefit directly, probably from the credits, whoever needs those credits for their development, that those are the most likely people that should be paying for that operational cost, probably through a county service area or some other contribution method, but we believe that's probably the most likely and appropriate source of that operational dollars. So today, we're asking you to authorize the filing of the application, authorizing up to $700,000 in open space funds or other funds that are appropriate should the grant be awarded. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions. I know we have Lauren Clark here also, if there are any questions, particularly on the open space values, and then Bob Costa, who's taking the lead from the flood control perspective.
Supervisor Holmes.
Thank you, Ken. This is certainly something I would support. My question is the ongoing costs. We don't have a county service area out there, and we don't have a method yet as far as mitigation. Is that something that this board needs to look at in the future to set up? Or?
I think absolutely. Right now in the Sunset Industrial Area, each individual property has to provide their own flood benefit. They're required to do it. This, if it gets awarded, if we're able to actually do it, will provide the capital cost to make that happen, or at least for the majority of the Sunset Industrial Area. Once we get it, we would need to come back to your board to talk about that operational cost. How would we do that $20,000? But $20,000 a year to provide in excess of 500 acre feet, very small costs, ongoing costs through a county service area or other method of doing it. I think we're open. We'll have to talk to those landowners probably in the Sunset Industrial Area about what options are available. We may not even require them to do it. We would give them the option, I would envision. Some people can choose to do it on their own property, set aside land, build their own retention basin, maintain it. That's their business. I think at the cost we're talking about, most people are going to opt into this program if we get the grant award and build it, and if your board then approves that process.
And so the benefit to Placer County is it protects the Sunset Industrial Area for flooding?
No, actually, all of what we're doing here, the flood control, we're mitigating our impacts on Sutter County. So we are not actually, because of the location, the flood benefits all are in Sutter County. But all of our development has flood impacts on Sutter County. We want to make sure we mitigate those. There has been, I believe, Sutter County sued Lincoln quite a few years ago. That's a large reason why the city of Lincoln is looking at Lakeview Farms, their flood protection facility, and why the city of Roseville is looking at Reasons Farm. That's their large facility. This is much smaller scale, but much more cost efficient. And because of the amount of development we have proposed in the unincorporated is probably at a very good scale of size to provide what we need very cost effectively.
Very good, thank you.
Supervisor Wygant.
And just to add on to Supervisor Holmes' comments, questions, mine, I've seen projects in the Sunset Industrial Area that have had issues, been lobbied, complained at by developers. For the on-site flood mitigation, it also strikes me that there'd be further development opportunity in the Sunset Industrial Area because you wouldn't have to worry about on-site flood detention, so there'd be more developable property, which would, I think, go a huge distance to make all this more cost-effective.
Absolutely. I think the technique everyone in the Sunset Industrial Area, or most have been used, is setting aside some of the property to dig a hole in the ground to stick their water in. And I don't want to say it's wasted land, but it's kind of an odd fish in the middle of the area. That could be used for much better uses, and this is a much more better use, we believe, of this property.
Then just commentary, the dynamics legally and or just intensely between Sutter County and Placer County jurisdictions, but including the City of Roseville. City of Roseville resolved their issue with Reasons Farm flood detention facility, but the same dynamics, and the City of Lincoln actually did have litigation levied against them, which resulted in settlement as a result of their committing to not have any flood impact on Sutter County.
Supervisor Duran.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'd be inclined to support this easement as opposed to the last easement that we discussed this morning, because it seemed that there is a much more delineated public benefit with regards to the flood issues and also the other issues of remediation of the wetland. So, thanks.
Any other comments from the board? Any member of the public wish to comment on this? Mr. Clark, was there anything you wanted to add to that? All right, seeing no additional comments, I'll bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move to item B, Truckee River Watershed Water Quality Monitoring Plan Continued Implementation. Bob Costa presenting.
Thank you. The action requested of your board today is to essentially give us authorization to enter into a consultant contract that will allow us to continue the water quality monitoring effort that commenced about 3 years ago in the Truckee River watershed. By way of background, the Truckee River Water Quality Monitoring Plan was developed by the county in response to a 2007 directive from the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board. That order went to both the town of Truckee and Placer County. We jointly developed a water quality monitoring plan that was presented to your board for approval some time back. In October 2009, your board authorized a consultant contract for up to 3 years duration to begin the implementation of that plan. Monitoring was first initiated in the Martis Valley area, where we have available county service area funding, in Squaw Creek, where there is specific bioassessment requirements from the Lahontan Regional Board, and in Bear Creek, another of the important tributaries to the Truckee River watershed. A summary of the first phase monitoring elements is included as Exhibit A in your staff report, page 266 to 268 of your staff report. Initial implementation of the monitoring included the establishment of the monitoring sites, the equipment acquisitions, the deployment of sampling and testing protocols, and data analysis and various reporting requirements, which have been underway since 2009. This current consultant contract expires December 2012, and in order to continue the monitoring uninterrupted, we need to have a new contract in place before then. Placer County received 4 proposals from consultants for this continued work. There's no proposed expansion in the Phase 1 monitoring effort that has been underway for the past 3 years. 2 of those consultants were interviewed, and CDM Smith, the consultant who has been providing these services for the past 3 years, has been deemed to be the best qualified consultant for the next term. The proposal would be to contract for an additional term of 1 year with subsequent renewal options for up to a 3-year term, similar to the way it's been done over the past 3 years. Implementation is expected to cost on average $350,000 annually. The Martis Valley area monitoring is expected to be about $270,000 annually, which is fully funded through the county service area in that particular location. The Squaw Creek bioassessment monitoring is estimated to cost $40,000 every other year. We have established cost-sharing agreements with 3 other water quality permittees in the Squaw Valley area, which results in reimbursement to the county of 75% of that cost, or $30,000 reimbursement to the county from those participants. What's known as rapid assessment monitoring that is done in both Squaw and Bear Creeks is expected to cost $10,000 every other year. And currently, we have budgeted the amount necessary to fund this contract. So with that, we'd recommend that your board adopt a resolution authorizing the Director of Public Works to negotiate, sign, and amend a contract with CDM Smith for the Truckee River Water Quality Monitoring Plan implementation, up to an amount not to exceed $350,000 per year, to be funded by the Martis Valley Water Quality Monitoring CSA with cost-sharing agreements with the Squaw Valley area permittees, and a total estimated net county cost of $10,000 annually, which is comprised of $6,777 of county road fund and $3,333 of general fund. And that would cover the periods of fiscal year 2012-13 to fiscal year 2015-16. So unless there's any questions, that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions from the board? All right, seeing none. Anyone in the audience want to comment or ask a question on this? All right, seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will now adjourn to closed session.
The board will now adjourn to closed session to discuss the items on page 269 of the agenda. Item 12 on the agenda, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Pawtaw versus County of Placer, and ad hoc committee versus County of Placer. In addition, there would be a conference with labor negotiators regarding the Deputy Sheriff's Association.